I actually have a question. I know last week I was kind of asking beginner questions. I think this is gonna kind of be the same for me, but right now, I think I mentioned this before. I'm like marketing and doing AI services for brokers. I've been finding brokers that are either having like a hard time finding like qualified buyers or motivated sellers. Just because I know you're a lot more experienced in this than I am, I was wondering what your thoughts on that and why most brokers I've come across are kind of opposed to working with each other. Can you kind of share some insights with me?
Um,
I don't know if this is the right platform for it. If this is like a little too basic for you, I definitely understand.
no, it's not. It's not too basic. So in business brokerage, aside from Florida,
Hmm.
Florida has their own business broker MLS, and so they multiple listings service that is owned by the Florida Business Broker Association (FBBA). Other than Florida, most of the rest of the country, the business brokers don't necessarily share fees. Why is that? Well, it it comes from it's a difference between real estate and business brokerage. So when you're looking at a business transaction, the buyer is going to be paying their own CPA. The seller CPA is not going to pay the buyer CPA. Seller's attorney is not going to pay the buyer's attorney. The seller's broker doesn't want to pay the buyer's broker. I mean, we don't need, if I'm representing the seller and I'm marketing confidentially, which is how, I mean, business sales are confidential. So we're always marketing confidentially. The buyers are already coming to me in the first place. So if I'm working with them and providing them with information and following up with them and giving them, getting them to sign NDAs, giving them access to the data room, doing all this, and then all of a sudden they spring, oh, now I want to be represented by my residential real estate agent. And I was like, no, your residential real estate agent has nothing to bring to this transaction other than to destroy it. And I don't want them involved in it. So, and I'm not going to pay their fee. So
Hmm.
if you want them to represent you, I will respect an agency relationship and I will copy them on all communications and whatever, but I'm not going to pay them because they don't bring anything to the table. And so that's kind of it happens. I mean, it's happens it just happens all the time. And it goes back to now, on the other hand, if I have somebody who is another cab member. Like if Brian had a buyer for one of my listings and said, "Hey Tanya, can we do something on this?" And was like, "Yeah, let's get it closed."
Okay.
So it really depends on the situation, but there's far too many residential agents, not within EXP because EXP doesn't allow it, but there's far too many residential agents out there wanting to jump over into business, but they don't have any training. They don't know what they're doing, and they're not bringing anything of value to the deal. So why am I, like Ricky said, business sales, business deals are very, very complicated.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of hours involved. And if you're working on something for a year, the last thing you want to do is take whatever, let's say your minimum fee was 20 grand. The last thing
Yeah.
you want to do is work on something for a year and then give 10 grand over to some residential agent that didn't really participate because they didn't have the knowledge to.
Mhm.
And then, at the end of the day, I always tell my mentees, it's like on any transaction, if you look back at it, if you reflect on it, and you find that you could have made more money flipping burgers at McDonald's with zero risk and zero liability, you shouldn't
Mm.
have taken that listing.
Yeah.
There was something that shouldn't have been done there, right? Because it just the liability on and particularly on smaller businesses, the smaller the business, the higher the probability you're going to end up in a courtroom, especially in California, um,
Mm.
because
What's
California is so litigious. So it's
like
like
that? That's the first time I heard that. Can you kind of explain a little more?
Yeah, when you're dealing with, if you're selling a business for $1.2 million, that seller has an attorney and has a CPA, and the buyer buying it probably more than likely has an attorney and has a CPA. They have people doing due diligence. If you're selling a business for 120,000, you've got a buyer who's probably a first-time buyer investing their life savings, doesn't want to pay an attorney, doesn't want to pay a CPA, is going to
Mm,
try and rely on you for everything. And if they and probably has never owned a business before either, and if they burn the business to the ground, then they don't want to take responsibility. So the first thing they're going to do is run and get an attorney who's going to sue everybody who touched the deal. They're going to sue the seller for non-disclosure or for fraud, misrepresentation, sue the broker, you as the broker, for misrepresentation. So literally, the smaller the transaction, the higher the probability you're going to get nailed in a lawsuit,
okay.
because it just, it's the odds. And when you're dealing with transactions in the million, 2 million, $5 million range, like I said, those sellers and those buyers are used to working with professionals. So it's a different mentality. But you
Mm,
also have those buffers because they're having their CPA, the buyer's having their CPA, their attorney, help them with due diligence. And so, if they burn the business to the ground and they come back and say, "Oh, it's the broker's fault," it's like, well, wait a second. You had an attorney and a CPA analyzing all the documents that I passed to you from the seller or gave you access to in the data room, but all those documents came from the seller. All I did was make them available to you. It's your other advisors that were supposed to be helping you analyze those. And so you got kind of an arm's length situation going where it makes it much harder for you to be sued in a situation like that. Does that make
definitely.
sense?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that insight. That makes 100% sense.